Hello, and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and welcome to this day. Guys, Christmas is next week. I can't believe it. We're here. We're here at the end of 2024, and Christmas is next week, and it's so exciting. I know that you're experiencing this excitement for the holidays. I remember that feeling when I was in clinical dentistry of a rush to the finish, this kind of sprint to the finish line. You're so excited for the holidays and just so eager to get out of there, to get out of the practice. I remember that need to just take a break, to step away from the office, to close the door, to shut the door. It wasn't very long into private practice when I realized I really deserved that full week off, and I gave my whole team that week off on purpose. I thought, I don't want anyone calling me with questions about what to do, and I decided very early on to just pay them for the week because I wanted everyone to have a solid break. But that rush to the finish that we're in right now of desperately trying to get in the last important emails or those critical projects that we need to tie a bow on, trying to get everything done. And then on top of it is all the things we're trying to do for Christmas, right? That rush to the finish line, that last minute that you have to order gifts, that last minute you have to buy in our house, the Irish sausage and the blood sausage. My husband is from Dublin, Ireland originally. So getting that Christmas morning, everything feels like this urgency and this rush to the finish line. And it's a little exciting. There's some dopamine hits happening because there's this anticipation of what's going to happen on the Christmas break, right? So you get on a little bit of a high, a little adrenaline rush as we have this frenzy to the finish. And then you finally slam the door behind you on that last afternoon before the Christmas break. And it's so exciting because if you're anything like me, you're thinking about those magical moments of Christmas, right? Excited for them, looking forward to. I would have 2 or 3 novels on my list that I'm looking forward to reading. I would have a puzzle ready to go. That's one of my favorite things to do over the holidays. I'd be dreaming of that conversation in front of the fireplace or that magical Christmas Eve with the kids and Christmas morning with the kids, and everything's so exciting just around the corner and just trying to get things out of the way right now, right? Like not even really paying attention to what's happening, just trying to move through and get through and check boxes off. Yep, that's another Christmas party done. Another Christmas gift wrapped done. Checking off those boxes. And I'll never forget this holiday one year when I had that same perspective and I was inviting the entire family to my house. The entire family. Killian's whole side, my whole side, everyone was coming. And so I really wanted to make it special. So after work every day, I'm going to find the special chocolate that's shaped like a reindeer to put on their pillows. I mean, I was going all out. Everyone was going to have a stocking. Everyone had a special thing inside their stocking unique to them for all these family members. And it was that same race to the finish. And I'll never forget finishing up. The team felt the same way, closing the doors that last day, driving home. By the way, family arriving before I even finished, right? Raise your hand if that's happened to you, where you're still treating patients as families arriving at the house and you're hoping and praying that everything's okay for them when they walk in the door. And I'll never forget on the way home, half an hour after I closed the doors, my entire team has left for the whole week up ahead, and that emergency patient called. And in the ortho world, this was an emergency that I could not delegate. It was an expander, an RPE, on TADs, the temporary anchoring devices. It was just that level of difficulty above what any of my team members could do on their own. And it meant absolutely I had to turn around and go back in. And oh my gosh, the frustration, the annoyance, the anger, the resentment I felt, because here I am. I'd left that world behind me. I was on my way to celebrate Christmas. The family was already at the house, and I had to turn around and go back and see this emergency patient. And that tenor continued throughout the week. Oh my gosh, there was one thing after the other. We had a flood at the office I had to go in for in the middle of the night. I'll never forget, this was the Christmas that at 5:30 a.m., my husband's dental practice had an emergency. The alarm went off. He had to go and check on it and see what had happened. The one after the other issues that were happening that seemed to just be encroaching on our personal time seemed so unfair. And what happened at home was family members, they just weren't as appreciative. No one noticed that chocolate on the pillow. Everyone was kind of complaining a little bit. I never got my dream of a hike in the woods that entire Christmas break. I never got my puzzle built. I just felt like I was cooking and cleaning the whole time. There was no delicious conversations in front of the fireplace. It was so disappointing and frustrating. And to be honest, near the end of the week, I just wished everyone would leave. I didn't realize how much extra work was on my plate running what felt like a full-time bed and breakfast. And I was just looking forward to going back to work on the 2nd. And I walked into work on the 2nd of January, and it was a mess. We had fled out of the practice at such a speed, and everyone had done this, that it was a wreck that we were walking into. And that whole first day, I just remember wishing the day to end so that I could get home that night to a quiet house. Oh, I'm exhausted just telling the story. I was so irritated. I was so disappointed. I was so frustrated. And to start your January that way, I'll never forget, immediately I was stressed out about work. And that started my next year. And so I started planning the next trip. I thought, you know what? I have got to escape a trip where I actually escape and I'm not also working and running a entertainment business for my whole family. So I started planning the next trip. I remember it was Iceland. I remember very clearly. I just wanted to get away and recreate peace and calm on my vacation. And you're beginning to see a pattern here, because boy, was that vacation disappointing. What if you didn't live a life that you constantly had to escape? And is that something that's happening in your life right now? Are you constantly living a life that you forever feel like you need to escape? You keep dreaming of the day that you can leave it all behind, but you're in that situation today. You keep dreaming of the next vacation. I remember at one point my husband even saying to me, the best part about my job was the days I got off. Can you believe that? I mean, have you heard yourself say that? I did this math once. And I figured that if you take 2 solid weeks off a year, and let's just say those 2 weeks you could actually enjoy. I just told you about a Christmas I didn't enjoy, and then a vacation I didn't enjoy. But let's just say there's some magical world where those 2 weeks you took off, you were actually super present, loved every minute of it. And let's say every Saturday of the year and half of every Sunday, you actually enjoyed. You lived the best day ever. You loved it. If you had those full 2 weeks and a day and a half every weekend, you would be living fully, enjoying your life 89 days a year. 89 out of 365. If you were living fully, enjoying only those days. Let's extrapolate even more. Let's say, because some dentists take a whole month off collectively over a whole year. Let's say a whole month. You were one of those lucky dentists who generously gave yourself permission to take an entire month off in a whole year. And let's say those same weekends you had available to yourself. Do you know how many days a year that is enjoying and living a happy life? If you enjoyed that entire month and had no residual stress, robbing you of your enjoyment of that month or of those day and a half every weekend, 100 days a year. That is it. Can you stand that for your entire career, you only live 100 out of 365 days a year? That 100 of them you actually enjoy. This hit me like a ton of bricks. We keep trying to escape our lives, the lives we're living. We're living a life that we want to escape. There's something wrong about that. What if you could live a life that you actually enjoyed? Because when we keep looking into the future, we keep dreaming of something around the corner. That grass that's always greener on the other side. We keep thinking, oh my gosh, if I could just get there, then I'll be happy. If I could just make it to that Christmas break, then I'll be happy. If I could just make it to the next thing, then I'll be happy. What we're doing is we're never actually living in the present moment now. We're never actually giving ourselves an opportunity to enjoy today. And what happens? We wish away time. We wish our lives away. And boy, let me tell you how deeply I'm feeling that right now with my oldest off to college. She came home for 3 days at Thanksgiving. I'm going to see her for just a couple of weeks at Christmas. Those delicious 18 years of her life have passed. Are you wishing those beautiful years away? Because I know I did. I know that's exactly what I did. And then I became so resentful when that precious little moment that I'd been longing for and dreaming of, that week, that vacation, that weekend, wasn't exactly what I'd hoped it to be. It's really interesting because dopamine is a cheat. Dopamine is a delicious, beautiful neurochemical, and it cheats us. It serves incredible purpose, but dopamine is a cheat. It's a future tripping hormone. And it releases when we think and dream of something we don't yet have. It's the excitement chemical. It's the chemical that gets you motivated, that gets you inspired. It's the thing that got us through dental school. We kept wishing for the day when we were finally that DMD, and we put ourselves through so much torture in the meantime. Dopamine did that for us. Dopamine is what gets you so excited. You know that feeling when you're dreaming of something, you got an idea in your head. I had this years ago about creme brulee. There was a special creme brulee that it was so delicious, and I remembered it, and I wanted to go back to that restaurant and experience that creme brulee with that particular crust of sugar on top that cracked just the right amount and that creaminess underneath of the creme brulee. Oh, I dreamt of it. That was dopamine. And it was just pulling me, drawing me. It's such a phenomenal, incredible neurochemical, and it serves great purpose. But when I got to that damn creme brulee, I didn't quite taste as great as I remembered it. And you know that when you eat something, you're like, oh, this isn't quite it. And you think, oh, the second bite, the third bite, like you keep willing it to be that same deliciousness that your brain had created for you. And that's what happened to me that Christmas as well. I had been delaying my happiness. I had been future tripping my happiness to this fictitious, phenomenal Christmas break. And damn it, it was so disappointing. Have you ever done that? What's interesting is the real magic of feeling fulfilled, of feeling satiated, is the less sexier neurochemical cocktail of oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, endocannabinoids, and all of these here and now. They're known to neuropsychologists as here and now neurochemicals. All of those hormones require being present. They require slowing down and being present. It reminds me of that song. Remember that one? I don't know. Was it from the 70s? Love the One You're With. It requires slowing down and being present right now. And I ask you this question, what if you didn't have a life that you needed to escape, But what if you went into work every day and actually enjoyed what you did? What if you could be present with that patient? What if you could actually appreciate and value the moment that you have with that patient? And here's the interesting thing. It doesn't have to be dependent on whether or not the patient is really even that great, whether or not you even have that great of a connection, or what if it wasn't even dependent on what a great job you did for them? In fact, could you imagine getting so much fulfillment and appreciation and satiation from every day that didn't put any requirements or restrictions on how your patient showed up? In fact, it could even be a patient who showed up and said, I really hate being here in this chair. Or it could even be the patient that says, is this appointment paying for your Tesla? What if even in that moment you could find appreciation and satiation, and you knew how within your own body to elicit those here and now sustainable happiness neurochemicals? What if it wasn't about needing to wish for something outside of you, but actually appreciating and enjoying and knowing how to go within so that you could be present in those moments? Because that's the only difference here. The only difference between feeling like there's this emptiness and like you're constantly striving for something else and you're working so hard to get there and you never actually get there, and the dollars actually start building up, right? The dollars in your bank account actually do start building up, and you start acquiring more things and you start experiencing more experiences, but you still feel that hollowness and that unfulfillment and that resentment and that frustration. What if you didn't have to escape the life you lived, but the life you lived was actually the life you enjoyed, the life you appreciated, and it wasn't dependent on how other people showed up. It wasn't even dependent on the number in your bank account. Now we start slowing down. Now we start valuing those moments. What if your enjoyment of Christmas, of the holidays this year, was not dependent on what your mother-in-law does or doesn't say, on whether they notice the chocolate that you left on their pillow? What if you could actually be present enough? Because the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And if we're chasing something else always during our work week, guess what? That's the way we live our lives away from our work week as well. And I'm not saying there might not be something out of alignment or that's not congruent for you in your practice right now. I'm not saying there might not be something that needs to be switched up in order for you to be more present. I mean, hey, it might be the number of patients you see a day. And just by making that one change, by decreasing the number of patients you see a day, you actually can have that moment of appreciation and presence. I'm not saying there's not something that you can tweak to change so that you can actually value today. But I would rather live a life where every day is sweet. And I'm not talking about hump day, trying to get over the hump of the week so that I can make it to the weekend, so that I can only live 89 days a year. Because those 89 days a year are so beautifully precious, but so are the others. And I know from my experience that that is how I wake up one day and I realize, I look at my husband after 23 years of marriage and I realize, oh my God, I've only been present for a couple of those because I was wishing for the next and the next and the next. So I wonder how you could give yourself permission for some of those here and now moments. Even if you just shift your perspective to here and now for a moment. What would it take? What would it take for you to be present in this moment, on this day? Even if Christmas is around the corner, instead of rushing towards it and dreaming about the future and living for the future, giving yourself permission to live for the present. What would that take? Now, I know in dentistry, there are some big components of the lives we live that make this really difficult. And that's my expertise. That's what I do. I help my clients identify what is it that isn't allowing you in what you do, in the business that you work in this beautiful service industry, taking people out of pain, giving people a reason to smile. The most beautiful, I think, the most incredible job in the world. What is it that's holding you back from being present and enjoying this moment? Not wishing your life away. So by the way, on January 18th, 2025, I invite you to join me I apologize, January 14th. It's a Tuesday night. Tuesday night after work, very short webinar, Find Your Balance. This is about the how. So now I've told you that constant dreaming about the future, wishing your life away, dreaming about the next thing, constantly pushing towards the next prize, and then recognizing that it's actually never as fulfilling. It never actually satisfies you, right? If you're honest with yourself, that vacation never actually does it for you, because guess what? You got to go back to work the next day. So at this webinar, we're going to talk about the how. We're going to talk about the how of finding balance and what that actually means, because the balance is not in the number of hours that you work versus the number of hours you spend with your family. That is a fallacy. It's a different kind of balance. We're going to talk about what that is. So it's happening on January 14th, Tuesday night. You can go to www.findyourbalanceinDentistry.com and register for it. It's free. There are no strings attached. But join me, because this made all the difference in my life. This changed everything for me. And it wasn't just about actually living 365 days a year. It was about actually greater success than I realized I could have. I didn't realize how much I was limiting my success by future tripping constantly, by wishing for something outside of me, by wishing for something different. I didn't realize how much I was limiting the growth of my practice. I didn't realize how much I was compromising my relationship with my husband and my kids. I didn't realize how much it was impacting my body and my health by constantly future tripping. Because the most important things in life are not your dollars in your bank account. They aren't. Those are the delicious consequence and subsequence of finding presence, of living a life true to yourself. It matters because time flies by, because our kids grow up, because those moments with our loved ones are precious and fleeting. It matters because you matter. It matters because your happiness matters. And when you prioritize your happiness, other people benefit. Your business benefits. Your patients benefit. Your children benefit. So I invite you to join me for this webinar. Go to www.findyourbalanceinDentistry.com and join me. And let's envision what it would be like to live a life that you didn't feel the need to escape. Because when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Business of Happiness podcast. If this episode brought you new perspective and value, I invite you to subscribe so that you catch all upcoming episodes and leave us a review. And if you know of a friend or colleague who could benefit from this perspective, share this episode with them and empower their day. For more information about the Business of Happiness and the Radical Happiness for Practitioners course, find me on www.thebizofhappiness.com. See you there.